Try so see the face on her. Gregory, was you 25 on your picture?
Probably about 29.
How old are you?
48.
Oh, Gregory, we gotta get
I know I need a new picture. No, it's good. It's out there right
You
there.
still you like a young tender.
I still look like a young tender.
I'm not
Somebody's
saying
got
that.
a few grades. That's all.
Oh no, we both.
I'm still.
I just tagged her.
Thank you. I think it older. It's got better.
All right.
Won't need another, this one here really do it for you. Baby, yeah, baby, I'm baby, come down to the let me show you how cool y'all about my big bro Gerod in the podcast crew.
It just look more natural than me up like that.
Okay. Get professional.
It's time.
All right, everybody. Welcome. Don't adjust your sets. Yes, you're seeing the Floyd Short podcast, and we are all together in one place for the first time. Here, ladies and gentlemen, you're able to witness it. So you know it's going to be good if we got all three of us together. So tonight, we got some topics that are just going to blow the roof off. I'm excited about this discussion because first we're going to start off talking about intimacy. We're going to talk about what is intimacy, first of all, understanding your partner's need for intimacy, how to connect with your partner on an intimate level. And so what's going to make it even more spicy is that we got a mixed group here. So you're going to hear from the male side, you're going to hear from the female side, which is going to be great. And then also after that discussion, we're going to dive into how to disagree without being disagreeable, because after you put on the wedding ring, let's be real, sometimes the household turns into a boxing ring, and we're going to talk about how not to let that happen. So I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves, starting from Mr. Melanin himself. Gerard, what's up, my dude?
What's up, man?
What's happening?
Hey, this has been a long time coming. You know, we share a screen and it's good. Not taking away from our chemistry on the screen.
Right.
When you in person, it's something special. I've been wanting to get this together for a long time. But
yeah.
Hey, remember when we first started, when TJ was on here? He used to
yeah.
say, it's your boy.
It's your boy.
It's your boy, Flex, the producer.
Okay.
AKA Gerard Ware.
And I must say that being in the midst of them, that they really smell fresh in person.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm so glad that they either bathed or put on cologne. You know, it makes the ambiance so nice to be.
I didn't put on no cologne. I took my shoes off. My feet smell good.
Oh,
that's
well,
what that is.
Anyway, it's your girl IC, the Love No Specialist, the portfolio of what love looks like, inspiration, all of that. It is so good to be in the presence of my Flex and Gregory. And yeah,
it's gonna be good.
Agree to not be disagreeable.
That's it.
Yeah. It is wild. Of course, I'm Gregory McKinney, your life and relationship coach. You can reach me at GregoryMcKinney.net. And also, I specialize in helping men understand emotional intelligence. So if you know a man or are a man, get them connected with me so they can understand their feelings and how to express it in an appropriate way.
Love yourself.
It's supposed to.
You got to. If you don't, nobody else will.
Hey, but let's do the house rules. Everybody out there in Cyberland, you know what to do.
Y'all know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe on all social media platforms. You know, we even said, what is it, MySpace? It's probably still somewhere out there lingering.
Right.
Get out there.
Black
Facebook.
Planet.
I ain't never been on Black Planet, but if it's out there, get on there.
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We have YouTube followers. So all social media platforms. Get out there, share, and then get in here and dialogue with us. Help the dialogue, and let's see what we're gonna come up with tonight. Okay. All right.
Man, what's up, Gregory? Let's get this thing started, man.
What's up? So we're gonna start talking about intimacy, which is always a very complicated issue for everyone. And generally, so the statistics show us that in, I think it was 79% of relationships, the man has a higher sex drive than the woman. So 79% of the time, the man wants sex more than the woman does.
What's this age bracket?
That's what I was going to ask.
That is good. That's a
Yeah.
good question. That is a good question. The percentage does change as we get older. So from like 29 to 35, men generally want sex more. But after 35, the percentages start to switch. The tables start to turn. Women start wanting sex more.
Yeah.
And so that's a very interesting dynamic that the later in a marriage, you find that the woman is a little bit more amorous than the man.
Yeah.
And so now we have to discuss his manhood being kind of affected by that, her feeling rejected because he's not maybe able to keep up with it and all that.
Yeah.
And so how do you balance that? And so a lot of times I get the question, just FYI, how often should you have sex? And my answer is always, you have sex as much as the person that wants it the least. So that way, everybody is pleased at the same time. So that no one is feeling forced to do anything that they don't want to do. So how often should you have sex? As often as the person that wants it the least.
So that's a lot to consider, though.
Yeah.
Because if you with somebody with a high sex drive,
Yeah.
they can feel sometimes like they missing out, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about the dynamics of how the age changed. And funny thing about that, I remember TDJ said that was God playing a trick on me. Like all these years, men been the the initiators, the drive is just crazy. And then they get in their 40s and it's just like
It starts to slow down.
yeah. And that don't mean that you can't
Yeah.
perform. You can be a healthy man, but just the drive for the most part.
You may go from like a 10 to an 8.
to 8 or a 9 for me.
Yeah, over 9 for
Yeah.
Gerod. So, but other men,
Yeah,
not me and Gerod.
Talking about like
other
at the
men.
age you are now?
Yeah.
Oh.
But you see what I'm saying? though? So,
I mean, I get it.
yeah.
I guess I'm in reverse because when I was hot girl, young girl back in the day, I was on top 10, like Richter scale. Now, man, let me tell you something. Because this is where life is. I'm probably a low 5.
Yeah.
I may be a 3.
so how does intimacy influence that though?
Yes.
Yeah, so what happens is that we have to rediscover intimacy in a new way,
Right.
which every couple goes through, and every couple thinks that their relationship is falling off a cliff because they're not hot and heavy as they used to be.
Yeah.
But it just means we're discovering intimacy in a new way. So it may be hand holding, it may be slow dancing, it may be cooking together. We're finding a greater connection in doing more things than just sex together.
Right.
And so it's just a new chapter. And a lot of people feel like because we're not having sex, then she doesn't desire me or she doesn't desire me. It's not that. We're still intimate, but we're finding it in a different way.
So that's the reason I shaped the title as I did, where it says it's tailored, fit to
Yeah.
tailored to fit your mate. And even at that exact moment, because it changes, right?
Yeah.
What I'm going through today might be different tomorrow. Oh, hey, let's be honest, later on in the afternoon. So it does take a level of attentiveness that's there, right?
And I can agree with that because
Yeah.
if we're able to do like the intimacy is like, oh, we talk or we're cooking together, whatever. I go from a 3 to probably a good 8. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just my love language. But if you ain't over there, stimulating me mentally and emotionally, or just the things that draw me in, yeah, I could turn into a bump on the log. I can be honest with myself. But yeah.
So when you dealt with couples, Gregory,
Yeah.
I'm sure you had to address that.
Yeah.
And one's in the mood and another one is not. And sometimes it's an attitude that can literally change the whole dynamics of what's going on that day. And women say, hey, I'm emotional. So if I'm not emotionally connected, like it's not gonna happen. And I know men have issues with that sometimes.
Depending on the age, in my practice, what I have seen is that when women are 40 and above and they're wanting sex but their husband doesn't, they're battling not being angry at their husband. So they're fighting frustration. For as men, we've also always been told our whole lives no means no. So we're practicing patience. And so what we're discovering is that the men and the women are kind of walking down 2 different paths when it comes to not receiving sex in their relationship. Women are generally fighting anger. Men are generally practicing patience. And that's what I usually speak to each of them about.
Yeah.
It usually happens that way. Yeah.
Wow. I never thought about it like that, but it makes sense, And it's that old book again, Men from Mars, Women from Venus.
Yeah.
It pays to try to understand it from the other's perspective.
It does.
So that way we're not as frustrated. They don't make it easy to deal with necessarily, but I think if you know, at least you know how to try to address it.
Yeah, because I can say if a woman is in the mood and then of course, husband over there or her husband, he just like, oh, I sleep or tired,
Video
go to
games.
sleep on you. Well, I ain't never had the video game issue, but yeah, well, they just be tired. You know, they
Right.
want to take a nap, and you be like, dude, I know you see me. And then they'll get them a little power nap, and then looking back at me like I'm ready. You be over there like with an attitude, like,
Yeah.
boy, go back to sleep because it's bedtime. So yeah, I could see that.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of times when we talk about men not performing, we
Mhm.
tend to think of it more as a physical thing, but it's not always. It's usually also an emotional thing because he could be playing basketball and your wife comes, and calls his name, or he could be playing video games or washing the car. So he could be physically active, but he's not interested in sex at the moment
Mhm.
because as men age, more responsibilities get acquired. So he's thinking about how we're gonna pay the bills, the kids, college fund, we gotta pay off this car, we gotta go. So all the stress tends to prevent him from performing. So it's not necessarily just him being incapable. It's him learning how to manage the stress and the weight of the responsibilities he's facing now.
Yeah.
And it takes two to handle it the best.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it takes a level of transparency and openness. How many men want to admit, like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm not in the mood because you get on my nerves, or you're not, you're not, what's the word I'm looking for? Motivating me, or what's the better word?
Turn me on.
You're not turning me on. I don't want to use it, but since
I mean, you
Yeah.
this is the floor is yours. Now, don't be
Yeah.
over there trying to use the 50 club if you want to be tactful.
So, yeah, you're not turning me on. So that's a level of transparency and openness that I think some people struggle with having.
Or I'm depressed. I'm sad. I'm not the youngest guy in the office anymore. These young kids are coming in. They're more educated. They're getting promoted before me. And now, we do have 2 kids in college. I'm thinking I may get fired because of all these new kids. How are we going to see them through college? So a lot of times you'll find your men that are 40 and above not interested in sex because just the world is a lot on them. And so it takes a wife to say, hey, I got you. We're going to do this together. Let's figure it out.
So I've heard a guy say, the older guy, and several guys, but they say, if my finances ain't right, I ain't trying to think about sex.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then she need to come out with a stack and just throw it on her. Be like, I got you
Make it
covered.
right.
Yeah. So when a man is
I
struggling,
understand what you're saying.
a challenge or whatever he's going through, like how have you directed that
Mhm.
couple, like how to address those challenges? I know it's different depending on what it is, but are there some general rules or some considerations that you'll give them to say, like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is something you can do to enhance the mood.
Yeah. Well, first we do have to date first. I think once we get married, we tend to forget that. I worked with a couple for about a year where she was a virgin when they got married. She waited till they got married, and he abstained while they were dating. And so when they got married, he couldn't perform. He was not interested in sex. He wanted sex once a month, and she wanted it once a day. So that was a huge gap, a huge gap for them. That was a major
chasm.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a major frustration for them.
Yeah.
And we worked together for a year on it. And what she had to do was really kind of learn how to receive his vulnerability. Because she was like, hey, she was like 31 when they got married. I waited 31 years for this, and that was not happening. And he was like, but now that I'm married, I have all of these things I didn't consider. And so first things first, you have to consider your person's vulnerability. Because it's embarrassing either for the woman or the man to say, I can't perform right now. No one wants to say that out loud.
So in this situation, it wasn't anything physically hindering it. It was just what he was doing.
It was psychological.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was psychological. It was just the weight of all the responsibility.
Yeah.
And then with her, it was the being prepared for that moment. And then she gets to this moment that she thinks it's just gonna be Pound Town City. And he like, nah. So because she hadn't had the experience yet, he probably had, because you did say he was abstaining, right?
He abstained while they were there, but he was not a virgin when he got married.
So he knew what that was. This was like, child, this is my first time. And then I could just see where she got to be intimate. And she was like, oh, this is what's up. And he like, well, I don't want to do it like that all the time. And she's like, well, this is a new experience, and I want to.
Yeah. Which is point number 2 is accept reality for what it is.
Yes.
And celebrate the once a month that you do get. I know for most people, you're like, well, wait a minute.
Celebrate once a month.
Yeah, celebrate that once a month. Make it a big deal. So he doesn't feel like he is letting his wife down. And then practice intimacy. When they were together, he didn't want to take showers with her. He didn't want to watch movies with her in the bedroom together. It was a lot of things he was avoiding because he thought it's going to lead to sex. And I don't want to even start that because I know I'm not going to be able to show up.
Wow.
So they have to practice being intimate with each other. So taking showers together, giving each other massages.
Once a month. So once a month is something different.
So if you work with me, one of the rules I have for couples is that you have to shower or take a bath together at least twice a week. So however long you work with me, at least once or twice a week, twice a week, you're going to have to shower or bathe together. You have to practice intimacy because the Bible says you are naked and not ashamed, right? And so that means physically and spiritually. Practice being vulnerable in front of one another, which is really the exercise, not necessarily to excite you, but practice being vulnerable. There's nothing shielding. There's no shield. And so they did that, and they gave them other exercises how to practice intimacy. And then it went on from there. And
so before you move from that part, I'm just thinking about the obvious. Like, you're doing these things because I'm doing these things because you told me to. Yeah. But I know mentally that what's been going on is still there. Still there. So there still could be potentially a challenge. Yeah. Even getting past that. But you're saying this is just a build up and hoping that.
So that works congruent with the next step, which is work on a plan to help relieve the stress in your relationship. Because your husband's stress should be the wife's stress. The wife's stress should be the husband's stress, right? So he was looking at it like, this is all for me to carry. And she doesn't have to, because I'm the man. I'm supposed to take care of all of this. And so I encourage her to come into that and see how she can help support him because he was starting a new career. It was a totally new industry for him. How could she come alongside him and help relieve some of that pressure off of him?
So instead of being sexually intimate, it could be like, babe, sit in the chair. Mm-hmm. Let me just massage your temples today, massage your shoulder, and just kind of release you from the day. Those are different ways to be able to come together.
Yeah. And I can see how that would disarm my whatever barrier I got. Like, it'll help me take that down if I see that she's genuinely trying to help ease the burden or the weight, you know, consistently. Yeah. Not just one time, like, hey, we got to do this because Gregory gave us this homework. Right. But like, if I see her doing that consistently.
Right. And so he was studying to be a firefighter. So I encouraged her, make his meals for him. Like, he can stay in tip-top shape. So let's do a meal plan together, right? And so you're helping him stay in shape with working out. You go work out together, you two go for walks, you two go for jogs. And so you're now helping him be good at what he's pursuing. Yeah. Also, so they teamed up and then helped them with their intimacy. And slowly but surely they got to a happy place.
Yeah, that firefighter, I would have been like, oh my God, honey, the house is on fire. Please save me. Well, I mean, but it still makes him have to be like, I gotta save her. Now, it ain't gotta be that it turns into something, but I mean, I feel like there's fun. That just used to be, I'm older now, I'm 50 plus piece, but those things do come, make a relationship more exciting. And
no question. So
you just have to put in the effort.
So I know you got some more steps, but I want to make sure the audience know. Put your comments in the chat, and we're going to get to them too. So, but just want to put that out there while you continue to talk us through the steps that couples that you.
Yeah. So we give you all this for free. People usually pay me, so you can send it to my Cash App. No. We also have to understand that a man's sexual needs are different than a woman's sexual needs, right? Depending on where they're at, right? Yeah. Right. Okay. So a man generally receives confidence when he has sex. It really does help us connect to women. It really makes us feel closer. Now, this is all with the caveat of when a man is in love. This is with the caveat he really cares for the woman, right? And so when a man has sex with a woman he generally cares for, he does feel closer. It is a bonding activity, right? Now, when women have sex, now I want you to speak to this because I could be wrong. It's generally a sign of reinforcing that the man is committed to the relationship. It's much like with a woman, with a man, we get confidence, a woman gets security. Like,
so is she rewarding?
It could be a reward. Yeah, it could be a reward. Because women have the ability to serve even if they don't necessarily feel like serving. Right?
That's a good one. Because I mean, it could be, sometimes you can, and a man can sometimes feel when a woman is doing it out of obligation. I want to make sure that you're okay, but this is just really not where I am.
Mhm.
Oh, man,
If
that's
this,
big.
if I don't really want to do this, but because
Mhm.
you are my husband and this is what you need,
Mhm.
I'll make sure that you're okay. It doesn't mean that it was a good moment for her at that moment. I'm serious.
I'm just thinking how I would
No,
feel
no.
if she told me that.
But I don't think she's not going to tell
She's
you.
not gonna tell you. It's probably
Oh,
happening
nah.
to us all.
Yeah, I don't believe we tell. I just
Yeah.
believe we do, and then after it's done, we may turn over and go to sleep. But there have been those moments that women will do that. I'm serious. They be like, "You want it? It ain't
Okay.
the best for me right now. But if this is what
Yeah.
is going to be satisfying for you, it's like taking one for the team at time. And it has happened in life. We don't talk about it enough,
Yeah.
but it does.
And I don't think we have to look at it as a negative thing because
Right.
marriage is a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is a ministry within the confines of a marriage. Sex is ministering to your partner. You know,
Oh, wow.
and
That's
so
true.
if you are serving your partner, even if you're not necessarily in the mood, you're performing ministry at that time because you know
Yeah.
your partner needs that.
Put them
Yeah.
to sleep, and then just read a
Yeah,
book later.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
So, also with sex, we also when I talk to people that aren't married, you have to know the difference between a luster and a lover. Do you know the difference between a luster and a lover? Say that you do.
Physically, it might not look any different.
That's perfect. That is 100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the natural, a luster and a lover are doing the same thing. A lover cares more about the other person's pleasure than they do theirs. A luster only cares about their pleasure. So
you can really be in a marriage, just have a luster.
and have a luster.
Because it's all about being that person being satisfied regardless. They don't care about you. And that's when you get into things like, you get into a marriage and it begins to show itself in that way. That's when, how do you sit and navigate and say, hey, I don't want to just feel like you by yourself, or I'm just here as a piece of meat because you're needing to get what you need. And we won't talk about those times. What we'll do is we begin to get a form of rejection and we begin to turn off. And then at that point, you're like, I don't even want to do anything. Or we find coping mechanisms where people that don't drink as much find themselves having to, I'm going to have a glass of wine or a drink to get myself in the mood to be able to even go forward with this. So those
are the extreme situations, and those are really, really unfortunate situations to be in, because if you are truly a godly person, the Bible tells us that we can't deny sex from our partner. There's no such thing as no, because my body is my spouse's body is mine. But if there's love there, we also know that we're going to move forward with consent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We would never just do anything inappropriate.
Right.
But in a truly God-centered marriage, there's no such thing as no.
Yeah.
Really, truly.
But you're right, though. There are some nuances that you need to consider.
Yeah.
That, the mood you're in, how your day is being, whatever personal issues you might have going on. So, of course, it's not like I'm finna force, hey, the Bible says that your body is not your own.
Because if a man truly loved his wife like Christ loved the church, he wouldn't force that on her.
Yeah. So, why don't we go? We got a couple of questions to put on the screen for. This is from Brother Ambassador Jimmy Jameson. Appreciate it. Yeah, he was on. Was it this week?
Yes. No.
Last week.
Last week he was on.
Last week. Yeah.
He said, "Is that healthy though for the woman being intimate without wanting to?" So that's back to the question that you had.
I will say it's not healthy, because there are walls and barriers that you do come up, and in the end, I believe, to be honest, it begins to deteriorate the affection level that you do have for your mate.
Yeah.
It's not healthy if that's the pattern in the relationship.
Right.
If it's a one-off,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that day in and day out that you're having to. It should be the exception, right?
Right.
Not the rule.
Right.
Yeah.
Good question.
Appreciate that question, Jimothy. Are there any more questions out there? We got some of my trusty faithfuls out there. Mia saying hola. Appreciate you tuning in. And OG Run.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so all my people. Yeah. Appreciate everybody. Yeah, keep the questions coming in. Again, what's the topic? Beyond sex. How to tailor. How to tailor intimacy. And intimacy is not just sex. You named a few other things that you need to consider, like what that person is going through.
Mm-hmm.
You said showering,
Yeah.
even though it might lead to sex. But what are some other non-sexual or things that are not as close to sex that you would consider intimacy?
So one of the things that I encourage couples who have kind of lost the spark in their marriage is to go do something they've never done before.
Mm.
So if you've never been salsa dancing, you want to go salsa dancing with your spouse. So what that does is that creates an environment where you two have to lean on each other.
Mm.
I know nothing about this. You know nothing about this, but we know each other. So let's get through this together. So go do something you've never done before together. Horseback riding, scuba diving. Go find an activity that either of you've never done. You can do it for the first time together, and that can help build.
I think that's important too. Because I know sometimes couples like we need to date. And they go back to the things that they used to doing.
And then you're not even in that space anymore. That worked in the beginning. It's not where we are now. So with the salsa dance, that's one on my list. I was like, I just want to be right here. I'm just shaking it up.
Mexican bar company at Willow Ben.
You don't gotta take me. I'll watch you take somebody. But anyway, even that. But then I would want to try this. Where we're out and about, and I want you to just blindfold me and say, I need you to trust me. Grab me by the hand and be like, just follow my voice and trust that I got you. I've never been to that level, I don't think, of just really trusting my heart. But because of maturing in the last 3 years of being single and trusting God with every aspect of me, can I now be that vulnerable to be able to say, I yield my heart to trust you. I'm gonna put this blindfold on, and you walk me and say, just follow my voice and trust. If I say step here, I want to be to that place.
That's right there, man. I'm gonna do that.
Oh, I like that. I want that. I mean,
that's
to me, that's growth for me.
Yeah.
But it showed a lot of my growth spiritually because of the Father that I have to trust. And I would always tell him that you know what you designed, what I need. And if I can trust you, someone I can't see, I know you got him in the earth. So I want to be able to say, if you say you got me blindfolded, I'm gonna grab you by the hand and I'm gonna trust that you're gonna lead the way.
That. That's great.
Yeah. We're gonna unpack that.
Give me some
days.
Yeah. So we got another comment coming up from Miss Nia Nicole. Somebody, you want to read it, Gregory, or you want me to?
Yeah, your spouse's body also includes the mental and emotional health and well-being of your spouse too. For women, most of the time, intimacy starts in the mind emotionally first. Absolutely, 100%. We do not disagree with that at all. If you are with a husband who loves you the way Christ loves the church, all of those factors will be considered. In fact, you should not marry a man who doesn't consider those needs as a priority, as probably a bigger priority than his own sexual desires. That should be a standard for all women. Of course, we completely agree with you. Thank you for that comment.
Yeah. And we got another one of our faithful followers, Heather Sanders. Hey, Heather, appreciate you tuning in. I hope you and Cora are watching together. So Mia goes on to say, I like the salsa, trying something new together scenario. And you're right, just to reiterate that what we said earlier, it needs to be something new,
right?
And not just stuff that you're used to doing
before. We've been bowling before. We've been to the movies together. Let's go do something.
Because it's gonna end up being a letdown sometimes. If you had a great time bowling before, you go there expecting it to play out like it did, and it didn't, and it's like
And bring me no more strawberries or blueberries. I may need to try a mango if I ain't never tried. Try different fruit, tray or something.
So this is good. We're gonna get ready to go to a commercial break, but do you mind just summarizing the discussion real quick about intimacy, and then we'll go to commercial break and come back with the next topic.
Yeah. So the biggest sexual organ in the body is the brain. And so if you really want to be intimate with someone, it is to understand how they think and why they think the way that they do. Because people are most turned on when people understand them. You get me. You understand me. That is what real attraction is. You can be sexually attracted, physically attracted to hundreds of people, but you can fall in love with someone who knows you.
So, just a little bit before we go to commercial.
Okay.
Because you're right, understanding is important, not discounting that.
Yeah.
But doesn't there need to be a level of fairness? And when I say fairness, where reasonable people could say, like, hey, you're not expecting too much or something that's not fair for me. Like I'm having to climb mountains and down in the valley just to prove that I love you, just so
That's your
that you
person.
can.
That's not your person.
Okay.
No, we don't want to have to walk through fire for you to understand that I'm a good catch.
Yeah.
When like the first date, the second date, the third date, if you ain't caught on by the third date that I'm worth your time, worth your energy, then let me move on to somebody who knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in relationships, when you're together, deep in relationships, though.
Then that's a problem.
Yeah.
That needs to be talked to with a therapist, because when there is freedom from distrust, when there's no distrust, you willfully give yourself to someone. Love is giving. The Bible says that God so loved the world that He gave. You think about a little child when they want to do something nice for their parents, they'll draw a picture to give to them. Love is giving. And if you don't have someone who's giving like this, then they're not your person.
Freely. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think we got one more question before we go to commercial. And this from Jimothy. He said, how much of my past experiences affects my intimacy with my mate? Oh, man. It could be all of it, especially
as much as you're not healed from it.
Yeah.
Right.
As much as you're not healed from it. God knew what He was saying, because when He was saying don't have sex before marriage, because what happens when you do get married, there's a invisible competition that goes on in your mind. Like, I love her, but girl, back in the day, that's my husband. But dude used to really take care of me back when I was in college. And so you have this invisible competition that your spouse doesn't even know that they're a part of that goes on. So it affects your current relationship as much as you're not healed from. And if you find you're having ghosts from your past come back, that means you haven't exercised those demons. They're doing jumping jacks in your head.
I'm just thinking about how many people are dealing with that.
Exercise
You
jumping jacks.
did that.
Yeah, that's a lot of people dealing with that, probably unknowingly, right?
And it can be the opposite end. You can tell with your mate that they were used to how the other woman was, and they're like, well, why would you do that? And you say to yourself, like, man, this was my best move.
Yeah.
And he was like, and it could be offensive, like, you on what? And you'd be like, whew, I'm just saying. So you're right. Yeah. You can get it from both angles. And then you're saying, now, wait a minute, how this gonna work?
Yeah.
I might like to slow dance. They don't know, why'd you turn the music on? It sets the atonement, it sets an atmosphere, an ambiance there.
Yeah. And when you do have sex with someone, spiritually, we know about soul ties. Science tells us that when a woman gives birth to a child, the seed that the man planted inside of her creates stem cells inside her body. So she has stem cells that I think they're located behind her eyes, and so his DNA permanently becomes fixed to her DNA for the rest of her life. So she is now carrying that man's DNA within her. And so there's a spiritual connection, then there's a physical connection that you can't leave, that you're with, and now what is supposed to be your happily ever after.
Well, I'm glad I ain't been with a lot of people, but we're gonna go to commercial break.
I'm still a virgin.
And hey, JT, he said really great topic. Appreciate you sharing. It's very informative, absolutely. So let's go to a commercial break, and we're gonna come back and get this thing rocking.
Yeah, you said something. I want to ask more questions.
Yeah.
What you need to do is get your ass a job. A job, boy.
Will you continue to sit here and take this from him?
Losing a job that you had for 13 years isn't an easy pill to swallow.
That's the problem, Mama. You keep giving this man chances. How many more chances does he need before he ends up killing one of us?
I've tolerated this for too long.
You can only hide things for so long. And you're a fucking coward.
Either get some help or me and my son are gone. Michael, just wait. Like, you don't understand.
I don't understand. What I understand, Mom, look at your face.
Man, that's good. So that trailer right there is from JT Bruce. He's in the audience. JT does great work. But in September, And we'll talk about this more at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But in September, we got a great, let's talk about it now.
Great
event coming up.
That?
Yeah, look at it. So the name of the event is Create the Life I Want. And it's been hosted and put together primarily by myself and JT. He's a great mind. The dude is just a great talent. He reached out and wanted to see if I would assist with putting this event together down in Texarkana. And if you look at
there. My family's from Arkansas, so I'm just down the street from my peoples. And I'm super excited about this. Men's mental health is, of course, a passion of mine, and being able to talk to men about how to break down those barriers, understand their emotions, so they can go out there and get everything that they want. Because I truly believe the reason why men are not succeeding in life is because they don't know that they're worth it, and they don't know how to break down those barriers that are stopping them. It's all mental. There's nothing in life that's stopping you but yourself.
And the good thing about this is we're bringing the community out. It's not just men. There are times where it's appropriate for men to be amongst ourselves.
Sure.
But this one is like we're also, mobilizing the community, whether it's your family, whether it's community leaders, whether it's your church, co-workers, everybody's invited to come out and share and understand, like, what can we do to empower our men? I believe that's at the catalyst of our community: men, family, community, city, state, country, and then world. I really believe that. So it's going to be an awesome time. You got a lot of entertainment going on, but you're just going to have more than men talking, and it's figuring out what can we do as a collective to just to right this ship.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying yes, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm excited to be there.
So what's this next topic?
The next topic: how can we disagree and not be disagreeable? So making sure that the wedding ring doesn't turn into a boxing ring.
Yeah. And the first thing about it is what it says on the screen: we are not enemies. And it seems kind of redundant to state that, but I've noticed, like, hey, we got to step back. Hey, we're on the same team, right? And state the obvious. So hopefully that can at least get you to a point of thinking, like, you're right, I am a little harsh or hostile to you. Thank you for reminding me. And hopefully that can kind of buy us a little time to where we can, get to resolving whatever the conflict is.
A little time, like a little time.
And I'm thinking that if I tell you that I'm trying to have this, we boxing against each other. I know I'm trying to let you know how you're making me feel. And it's ironic that you would use the boxing ring, because I would think about that. Like, we do all this fighting, and when you just get tired, like, you're not listening to me, I'm going to my corner. You can stand in the middle of the ring on your own, but then by the time, I can go back and let's talk about it, then he done went to the corner. So we still not meeting in the middle of the ring to say, you know what, gloves are off. Let's just do what we need to do to nurture the marriage and to see each other's perspective and respect it, so that we can move healthily, collectively moving forward.
That sounds so pretty. That's harder to do in reality, though.
Well, what I'm saying, it may be because when you've lived it, then you can look at it once you've been in the boxing ring and how they played out. And so I can only talk about how the boxing ring looked for me and how I learned from it. So that's to help somebody else know that if you're gonna keep fighting, 9 times out of 10, one person will be in the ring ready, but because of pride and ego or trying to prove a point, the other one will say, you know what? Here I see her coming back, or I see him coming. I'm going to the corner. I'm gonna let him stand there for a little while, because it's like you're trying to teach a person a lesson, and we're never going to get the results.
Teach another adult.
Yeah, instead of coming to the ring and say, I'm gonna wait here. Not that I'm waiting forever for you to, to not show up, but I'm here, and I'm gonna be here as long as it takes, if it's gonna get us to a better place. Because I'm not gonna be just, waiting and be my heart being broken or I'm feeling disconnected.
Yeah, there's limitations. I know you're gonna unpack the heck out of this thing, man. But I just care about that, because you said it's harder than people think.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned in the military, and I talk about this whenever I'm doing any spill about emotional wellness. I'm telling you how to react, not how to feel. So those are two things, two different things.
It is.
How I feel does not have to dictate how I act. or respond to you or anybody. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. And you are echoing something I wanted to share is that when you're fighting, you're not fighting the person, you're fighting their trauma.
Oh, wow.
That's what really the root of the argument is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times because mom did this to me or dad did this to me and my ex-wife did this to me, then I feel like you're about to do it. And so a lot of times when you have issues in your marriage and the person tends to run away, it's because they feel like you're going to leave me anyway. So why do I need to even stay in this fight?
Yeah.
Why even stay in the middle of this and why even argue with you? Because you're just going to leave like everybody else did. And so a lot of times you'll find yourself in therapy, we circle back to, like you said, I just want you to hear my side. I just want you to hear my point of view. They're not able to hear that yet because their own trauma is getting in front of that. And they're thinking, if you say everything you want to say, then you're going to walk out the door after you're finished. And so they're trying to cut you off and hurt you before you can hurt them. So first and foremost, when you're having these relationship issues, just remember, you're not always fighting the person. You're fighting their trauma. And that's a unique thing to have to remember because it does change how you approach the person. Because you may have to start by saying, I am pissed off at you right now. I will not leave you, but I am going to fight you. I am going to stay, but you are going to hear my mouth. And that's a good thing to actually say because the person now is secure in knowing you're not going to leave, you're not going to abandon, and now we can have this out.
And so that's really good because you could look at when the times when people are taught to be seen, not heard or seen. And so in relationships when that happen, you can see me because you're physically attracted, but you don't listen to me because you choose not to hear me because nobody listened to you when you were, younger and everything. And so I can honestly say that was what I've learned about me was being seen and not heard. And then you get in relationships where they see you, but they don't take the time to hear you. But they also come from an angle where they were never heard or they were never seen. And so now it's the back and forth, like you said, the childhood traumas, trying to relinquish those things. So
So you bring up a great point that I was going to bring up later, though. It's how important it is to acknowledge, even if you don't agree with somebody, and you don't even got necessarily understand. I know we get this thing like trying to make somebody understand. I think there's a level of grace and patience that we should say, like, I might not totally understand right now, but there's empathy that I have that I can say, like, you're hurting or it's affecting you some way, some fashion that I can say, like, you know what, let me pause and let me give you the floor. And it might be today, tomorrow, and for a week as we unpack this thing, but we don't gotta always understand. And I need to make sure that I'm acknowledging that what you said, I hear you. And I'm work through trying to understand it. But right now, I think I can be honest and say, I don't understand it fully, but I want to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Also when you're fighting or have a disagreement, it's not as important what you're fighting about as it is what you're fighting for.
Break it down.
So for instance, if a wife is upset at her husband because she's saying he doesn't help out with the chores, you never do the dishes, you never vacuum, you never mop. She's not fighting for him to do the dishes and to mop and to vacuum. She's fighting for partnership. She's fighting for a co-partner in life. She's fighting for an allegiance here. And so oftentimes when you're in therapy, you hear what the person's fighting about, but it's important to lead them to what you're fighting for.
That's why I tell people you can be trying to treat the symptoms and not the actual ailment.
The strong man versus the strong hoe. That I'll put it. So right. So say you're not a stay-at-home mom, but you work just like your husband does. He may get off earlier before you do. And even if he can't cook, it's the fact of taking out the time to say, you know what? I know she like this or whatever. I can pick it up, take it home and plate it. I'm just telling you that I want you to meet me in the middle to say, hey, your working is just as important as me, and that this will give us time to be able to sit down and not have to think about you coming home to cook, knowing that you got the reset for your day as well. Yeah,
and so a lot of times that responsibility is on us because we get home, we're hungry, we're mad that our spouse didn't stop by Chick-fil-A or nothing's cooked, and so we'll start yelling and screaming about that instead of saying, you know what would be nice is what I'm really angry about is that you didn't care enough to consider my feelings. I wish you would have took a moment and thought, how would I feel coming home, an hour after you do, starving and hungry. You shouldn't have to wait for me.
Yeah. That's good.
So it's not what you're fighting about, what you're fighting for.
So we got a question from me. I appreciate the comment. Question. She said, active listening. Pause and hold your thoughts while the other person is talking so that you can hear them fully. Yeah, that's a challenge when you're in defensive mode. Absolutely. That's the whole thing. And I'm listening to respond and not understand. Right.
To react, yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. You want to respond to that? You want?
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Like a sandwich woman. I think that's right. That's the gospel.
You remember that? That's an old Gregory was on one time. Gregory was like, if I'm paying the bills, sending you to the Bahamas, I bought you a couple of Louis and some shoes. If he come in and say he fix him a sandwich.
Oh yeah, because I started grabbing you stuff on live.
Oh, yeah,
trying to
got
I got you, baby. There goes some chips.
Yeah.
That bread, all of that.
That's dope. So this whole issue, well, here's another. She said, oh, that's the same question. But so there's this thing that I started focusing on a while ago. It's called competing traumas. So we're coming into this relationship where some of what we experienced in the past, what we've learned, what we see others do, and we're trying to figure this thing out. Whatever happened to me, what I'm dealing with is, I'm not saying it's necessarily worse than what you may be dealing with, but it's relative and it's real. And then what you're going through is real and relative to you. And so now sometimes you got these competing traumas, and somebody in those moments, somebody's gonna have to be the bigger person, for lack of a better phrase, right?
Yeah.
To be the bigger person to say like, hey, you're right. I got to put what I got going on to the side for the betterment of this relationship and address her or vice versa.
So competing dramas is ego. So what the ego says is, I am the extreme. So either I am the extreme best or I'm the extreme worst. And so the ego says that I am always going to max out the situation. And so when you have a competing trauma, say, I grew up in a single parent home. Well, I didn't even know my parents. Yeah. You're doing it. That's ego. Ego says, I'm doing better.
And ego can happen subconsciously, right? I'm thinking about traumas that people don't even aware. They might have normalized what they've experienced and went through, but still, and thinking like, hey, I grew up strong, having to fight for myself, so that's how I am. And not realizing you're not giving your mate the opportunity to have a healthy relationship, right? And vice versa. So those things can be competing with each other, and people struggle to even know where to begin, like to address this, because again, you normalize these things and actually championed it like, hey, it's a badge of honor because of what I went through in my past.
And then finding the balance there, because of course when you do, which I never looked at it as competing traumas, but it makes sense now, to be able to shut the valve off. And I've been able to do that, and then to be like, well, you can't be the one to stop the conversation. Well, guess what? You're gonna be talking to yourself, because if that's the way you're gonna have to see, if I'm trying to diffuse or to bring some form of balance, or even if it was the spouse, when do we just, like you said, take the ego out of it and really listen to say that, hey, we're trying to get to common ground, and I'm still trying to make it a and he over here or she's trying to say, we need a minute. Let's reset the button, and then we'll come back to it.
And a minute might be a day or even a week.
It could be. Sometimes it could be 2 days. I've learned that don't force something to just be, I need you to respond to me right there, because then that's when all the emotions are at the forefront. When the hurt feelings speak, instead of really sitting down to hear and to digest what is being said to you. But that takes maturity too, or growing or relinquishing that you don't want to let those traumas lead in the relationship anymore.
I agree with that. Sometimes people have an issue with that because the Bible says don't let the sun go down on your wrath, right? And so if we really unpack that text, what it is saying is that at the end of the day, even if you have a resolved issue, you can say to yourself, I am considering what you said, and we'll pick up tomorrow. That means we're not going to end the day screaming and yelling. We're going to take a deep breath, and we're going to come to a calm place. We're going to consider everything that's been told and heard, and then we're going to pick back up tomorrow.
So don't try to tap me tonight. No.
Your body is not your own.
Go ahead.
And so I still encourage couples that even if the issue's not resolved, go to bed with a sense of calmness at least. Like you still haven't resolved the issue, but before we lay our head to a pillow, what we're gonna do, we're gonna agree to disagree tonight, and we're gonna reapproach it tomorrow.
Gregory, that's hard, man. And when the worst of the worst issues, and you didn't feel like you'd been disrespected, and you done had to give over.
And what's more important, that issue or your marriage?
Yes.
Because when you have that friction, you're giving the devil a
So
foothold.
you know the book answer is going to be the marriage, but that ain't the behavior. The behavior did not reflect that. Because when people are hurt and ego is involved with traumas, and you trying to be heard, that's why I was using the word acknowledge earlier. Even if you don't understand, like you gotta acknowledge. Man, that's a level of submission in a relationship that most people don't want.
Back going to see some of your ugly.
But you're not submitting to your spouse, you're submitting to Christ.
Yeah.
And what Christ is doing to try to protect you. Go to bed. If you're ever in that situation, men or women, think about, if I don't do this, if I don't surrender to Christ, imagine my children have to grow up in a broken home. Yeah. Imagine losing half of my assets. Imagine now being divorced for a second or third time.
Imagine somebody telling you just because you got kids together don't mean that you got to be together.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You got all this, man.
What you're opening the door up to is unhealthy voices to come in and to try to persuade you down the wrong road. And
so I get when people say if your friends or people that's not married or don't value marriages, you know, you need to be careful, right? Well, Ron said, I'll be the bigger person as long as I
knew
can
it was
get
one out there. I knew it was one.
After, right on. I get it.
2.5.
But, you know, man, this is when you've given, and I'm just bringing the human element in.
Yeah.
I get, you know, you try to be Christ-like. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes you have to deal with what people are going through in the moment, right?
Right.
And, you know, that's the double-edged sword of our relationship is that you should be in them freely. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and the thing is, if it's forced or coerced, I'm gonna be honest. I don't want you to be with me just because Christ said it. Mm-hmm. You know, because I'm probably not gonna get the best of you. Mm-hmm. But part of that too is arming yourself. So, you know, sometimes we're so reactive to the issue. We don't go to counseling until man, it's rough, and we about to take the life out of each other. Yeah. You know, and I love the years in the Army. We learned to be proactive and try to, you know, do risk assessments and figure out what could potentially go wrong. And now we're trying to attack those things and learn and grow in those areas that could potentially be before they come. And it puts you at an advantage. Not that it's going to keep any bad thing from happening, but at least you're going on with some information, how to communicate, how to consider others, how to be patient, you know, all those other things right there.
And I'm all for developing a game plan. But if this is your situation, you're still hot, you're still angry, and it's the end of the night, your spouse is went to bed, then go to God with it. Get your pen and paper out, develop a game plan. Say, God, okay, what can I do? And ask God for a game plan. Or you just start scribbling and say, God, then correct it where I'm wrong. Yeah. You know.
Once again, I ain't telling you how to feel. I'm telling you how to act. The anger could be there. You know, but in your anger.
And that's a good thing. Well, that's a good thing that you just said that we don't do. Lord, correct me where I'm wrong.
Yeah. Because we say, Lord, correct him. I'm finna pray for you. Can we pray?
Yeah.
The whole prayer will be about you.
Yeah.
This man,
well, Lord, why you listening?
Have you guys ever tried some of those tricks they say when you get angry at your spouse to do? Like argue whispering?
You know what? I saw that on something on the TikTok, like you're raising your voice. This is not your inside voice. I thought it was a really good.
I'd be like, I ain't got time for this
technique. Like, no. And it was really good. We did find it. Yeah.
Hey, you want to take this out? I see from here.
I'm the person that needs a minute or two or we listen. I'm getting better though, because I realize the more time that elapsed, the more division is being created. Let me tell you something. When I tell you that is a true fact, baby, what you'll realize, it'll start off as a day, turn into 2 weeks. Next thing you know, you've been sleeping in another room for 6 months. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's about being able to be mature enough to understand that I don't have to. It's like holding somebody hostage. Like, I'm going to keep you locked up or locked away. And then I'll just be like, come back. But what it does bring further and further. You separate further and further apart.
And can you put that comment back up there? I like that she's self-aware.
Right.
Mhm.
She said, I'm the person that needs a minute or two or a week. Listen, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us not even aware that our
Yeah.
behaviors are toxic.
Or I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hats off to you for being aware, self-conscious of where you need to grow. And I think that we all, today we